Good morning and welcome to another episode of Pep's Corner. Today we will continue reading our book, The Westing Game. We will read from chapter 21 today. We are in week 16, day number 1. Our focus and purpose have been posted on the screen, so make sure, boys and girls, you have your book in hand and are actively reading and following along. Remember to reread a second time so you are coming to shared reading, fully prepared to engage in instruction. Let's begin. Chapter 21. The Fourth Bomb. The door to the apartment 2C opened. Flora Bomback screamed, and Turtle flung herself on the pile of money they had been counting. It was Theo, not a thief. "Can I borrow your bike for a few hours? It's very important." Theo was not a runner like Doug, who was fuming about him being so late. He needed the bicycle to follow Otis Amber right now. Turtle stared at him in a stony silence. "I didn't make that sign in the elevator. Besides, you already kicked me for it." "Please, Turtle." She still wouldn't answer. "Punk kid. I had a long talk with the police today, and I refused to tell them who the bomber was." "What's that supposed to mean?" "What does it think it means?" "It means that he and everybody else knows that Turtle is the bomber." "Never mind. Can I have your bike or not?" "Why do you want it?" Theo ground his teeth. "Take it easy. Anger won't help any more than blackmail did. Try being a good guy. I saw Angela in the hospital today. She sends her regards." "What's that supposed to mean?" "You let me have that bike, Turtle Wexler, or else." Turtle did not have to ask what else meant. Police, bomber, Angela. But how did Theo find out? "Here." She threw the padlock key across the room and waited for him to rush out before she let go of the money. "He's such a nice boy," Flora Bomback remarked. "Sure," Turtle replied, dialing the telephone number of the hospital. "Angela Wexler, room 325. "Room 325 is not accepting any calls." Turtle hung up the phone. If Theo knew, others knew. Angela had set off those fireworks, wanting to get caught. But it was different now. Now she was confused. Now she was just plain scared. They could force a confession out of her in no time. The guilt was right there, staring out those big blue eyes. Maybe they're questioning her now. "Baba, I'm not feeling so good. I think I'll go home to bed." Weaving through a rush hour traffic on Turtle's bike, Theo trailed the bus to a seamy downtown district across the railroad tracks where Crow and Otis got off. Skid Row. The pair wandered through the dimly lit, littered, and stinky street, bending over grimly bums asleep in doorways, raising them to their unsteady feet and leading the ragtag procession into the decaying storefront, paint and peeling off the letters on the window. "Good Salvation Soup Kitchen." A drunken wreck of a man lurched into Theo, who put a quarter into the filthy outstretched hand, more out of fright than charity. Snatches of hymn singing drifted toward him as the last of the stragglers staggered through the door. Theo crossed the narrow street and pressed his nose against the steamy soup kitchen window. Rows of wretched souls sat hunched on wooden benches. Crow stood before them in her neat black dress, her hands raised toward the crumbling ceiling. Behind her, Otis Amber stirred a boiling mess in a big iron pot. Theo pedaled back to Sunset Towers at a furious pace. Whatever brought Crow and Otis Amber to these lower depths was none of his business. He hated himself for spying. He hated Sam Westing and his dirty money and his dirty game. Theo felt as dirty as the derelicts he spied on, even dirtier. The judge thought they had finished with the heirs. "Not quite," the doorman said. "McSuthers." Make sure you read Sandy McSuthers. Sandy turned to a blank page, pushed his taped glasses up the broken bridge of his nose, and looked at the judge. "Name?" It had not seemed sporting to investigate one's own partner, but McSuthers was right. This was a Westing game, of course. She had kept some facts from him about other heirs, but only because she did not trust his blabbering. Josie Joe Ford, with a hyphen between Josie and Joe, Age, 42. Education, Columbia Law degree, Harvard. The judge waited for the doorman to enter the information in his slow, cramped lettering. He had to be meticulous in order to prove that he was better than his 8th grade education. It's a pity he had not gone further. He was quite a clever man. Jobs, assistant district attorney, judge, family court, state Supreme Court, appellate division. Appellate has 2 P's and 2 L's. Never married, no children. Westing connection. The judge paused, then spoke so rapidly Sandy had to stop taking notes. My mother was a servant in the Westing household. My mother was a servant in the Westing household. My father worked for the railroad and was the gardener on his days off. You mean you lived at the Westing house? Sandy asked with obvious surprise. You knew the Westings? I barely knew Mrs. Westing. Violet was a few years younger than I, doll-like and delicate. She was not allowed to play with other children, especially the skinny, long-legged black daughter of the servants. Gee, you must have been lonely, Judge, having nobody to play with. I played with Sam Westing. Chess. Hour after hour, I sat staring down at the chessboard. He lectured me, he insulted me, and he won every game. The judge thought of their last game. She had been so excited about taking his queen, only to have the master checkmate her in the next move. Sam Westing had deliberately sacrificed his queen, and she had fallen for it. Stupid child. You can't have a brain in that frizzy head to make a move like that. Those were his last words he ever said to her. The judge continued, I was sent to boarding school when I was 12. My parents visited me when they could, but I never set foot in the Westing house again, not until 2 weeks ago. Your folks must have really worked hard, Sandy said. An education like that costs a fortune. Sam Westing paid for my education. He saw that I was accepted into the best schools, probably arranged for my first job, perhaps more, I don't know. That's the first decent thing I've heard about the old man. Hardly decent, Mr. McSuthers. It was to Sam Westing's advantage to have a judge in his debt. Needless to say, I have excused myself from every case remotely connected with the Westing affairs. You're awfully hard on yourself, Judge, and on him. Maybe Westing paid for your education because you were smart and needy, and you did all the rest by yourself. That is getting us nowhere, Mr. McSuthers. Just right, Westing connection, education financed by Sam Westing, debt never repaid. Theo, upset over his Skid Row snooping, took out his anger on up the button, poking it, jabbing it, until the elevator finally made its way down to the lobby. Slowly, the door slid open. He stared down at the sparkling, sputtering arsenal, yelled, and belly flopped to the carpet as rockets whizzed out of the elevator, inches above his head. Boom! Boom! A blinding flash of white fire streaked through the lobby, through the open entrance door, and burst into a chrysanthemum of color in the night sky. Then the elevator door closed. The bomber had made one mistake. The last rocket blasted off when the elevator returned to the 3rd floor. Boom! By the time the bomb squad reached the scene, by the way of the stairs, the smoke had cleared, but a young girl was still huddled in the hallway door. Huddled on the hallway floor, tears streaming down her face, her turtle-like face. For heaven's sake, say something, her mother said. Tell me where it hurts. The pain was too great to be put into words. 5 inches of Turtle's brain were badly singed. Grace Wexler attacked the policeman. Nothing but a childish prank, you said? Some childish prank. Both my children critically injured, almost killed. Maybe now you'll do something. Now that it's too late. Unshaken by her mother's anger, the policeman held up the sign that had been taped to the elevator wall. The bomber strikes again. On the reverse side was a handwritten composition, How I Spent My Summer Vacation by Turtle Wexler. Grace grabbed the theme and shook it at her daughter, who was being rocked in Flora Bombach's arms. Somebody stole this from you, didn't they, Turtle? You couldn't have done such an awful thing, not to Angela, not to your own sister. Could you, Turtle? Could you? I want to see a lawyer, Turtle replied. The bomb squad, faced with 6 hours of overtime filling out forms and delivering the delinquent to juvenile detention facility, decided it was best for all concerned to escort the prisoner to apartment 4D and place her in the custody of Judge Ford. Judge Ford put on her black robe and seated herself behind the desk. Before her stood a downcast child, looking very sad and very sorry, not like the Turtle she knew. You surprised me, Turtle Wexler. I thought you were too smart to commit such a dangerous, destructive, and stupid act. Yes, ma'am. Why did you do it, Turtle? To hurt someone? To get even with someone? No, ma'am. Of course not. Turtle kicked shins. She was not the type to bottle up her anger. You do understand that a child would not receive as harsh a penalty as an adult would. That there would be no permanent criminal record. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. She was protecting someone. She had set off the fireworks in the elevator to divert suspicion from the real bomber. But who was the real bomber? Nothing to do but drag it out of her, name by name, starting with the least likely. Are you protecting Angela? No. The judge was astounded by the excited response. Angela could not be the bomber. Not that sweet, pretty thing. Thing? Is that how she regarded that young woman, as a thing? And what had she ever said to expect? I hear you're getting married, Angela, or how pretty you look, Angela. Had anyone asked about her ideas, her hopes, her plans? If I had been treated like that, I had used dynamite, not fireworks. No, I would have just walked out and kept right on going. But Angela was different. What a senseless thing to do, the judge said aloud. Yes, ma'am. Turtle stared down at the carpet, wondering if she had given Angela away.